Hello, my dear students. I think you all are safe at your home. In the present situation, avoid going crowded places and give more attention to your studies. Then now I am here to teach you the last part of the lesson, the portrait of a lady written by Khushwant Singh. Through this lesson, then we have seen the relationship with the author and the grandmother. The first phase of the relationship started when he was left with her grandmother in the village. Later, in the second phase started when they went to the city. The third phase began when the author joined the university and he got a separate room for studies. Later in the story, we have seen the author went to abroad for higher studies. He came back after 5 years. Again, the lady was there at the railway station to receive him. Now, move on to the last part. Take your literature reader, page number 5. In the evening, a change came over her. In the evening, they noticed a change in her behavior. She did not pray. She collected the women of the neighborhood, got an old drum and started to sing. She invited the women from their neighborhood and started singing. For several hours, she summed the sagging skins of the dilapidated drum. Sagging skin of the dilapidated drum is a phrase. The meaning of the phrase is the loose skin of an old drum. And sang of the homecoming of warriors. That means she started singing for hours. This shows then maybe she decided to enjoy the day of her grandson's arrival, or she had anticipated her death. Then we had to persuade her to stop to avoid overstraining. They persuaded her to stop doing this. That was the first time since I had known her that she did not pray. Then usually throughout the story we can see then she is praying always. But in that particular moment, the author noticed that that was the first time since the author had known her that she did not pray. The next morning, she was taken ill. The next morning, she was not well. It was a mild fever and the doctor told us that it would go. It was a mild fever and the doctor told them that it would go soon. But my grandmother thought differently. Then according to grandmother's opinion, she said that she was going to die. She told us that her end was near. She said that since only a few hours before the close of the last chapter of her life, she had omitted to pray. She was not going to waste any more time talking to us. She did not show any interest to talk to them. Instead of, then what did she do? She started praying. We protested, but she ignored our protest. She lay peacefully in bed and praying and telling her beads. They tried to talk to the author and his mother, the author's family, tried to talk with her, but she protested. She lay peacefully in bed and praying and telling her beads. Instead of, she lay peacefully in her bed and started praying. Even before we could suspect, her lips stopped moving. Then after some time, her lips stopped moving and the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. A peaceful pallor here means fading of the color, spread on her face and we knew that she was dead. After some time, she died. We lifted her off the bed as it is customary, laid her on the ground and covered her with a red shroud. Shroud means shawl. Then as it is a custom, they took her and laid her on the ground and covered with a red shawl. After a few hours of mourning, we left her alone to make arrangements for her funeral. Then what did they do? After some time, they left her alone to make arrangement for her funeral. That means they went to make arrangements for her funeral. Then she was alone in that room. We left her alone to make arrangements for her funeral. In the evening, we went to her room with a crude structure to take her to be cremated. In the evening, they went to her room to take her to be cremated. The sun was setting and had lit her room and veranda with a blaze of golden light. We stopped halfway in the courtyard, all over the veranda and in her room, right up to where she lay dead and stiff wrapped in the red shroud. Thousands of sparrows scattered on the floor. Then there they noticed thousands of sparrows scattered near her. There was no chirping. We felt sorry for the birds and my mother fetched some bread for them. The author and his mother felt sorry. The author and his family felt sorry for the sparrows, and author's mother brought bread pieces for the sparrows. She broke it into little crumbs the way my grandmother used to do. His mother broke it into small pieces as the way the grandmother used to do and threw it to them. The sparrows took no notice of the bread, but the sparrows did not notice. They came to show their respect to the old lady. When we carried my grandmother's corpse off, they flew away quietly. When they carried the grandmother's dead body, the to be cremated, they flew away quietly. Next morning, the sweeper swept the breadcrumbs into the dustbin. Next morning, the sweeper kept the bread pieces into the dustbin. Then what we have seen in the last part, the author after 5 years, again author came back to his house. Again, this lady was there at the railway station to receive him. In the evening, they noticed a change in her behavior. She invited the ladies from her neighborhood and started singing. Then that means she decided to show her love towards her grandson, or she had anticipated her death. Next morning, she was not well. Then she lay on her bed and started praying. After some time, she died. The author, as it is a custom, they took her dead body and laid on the floor, and they went to make arrangements for the funeral. When they came back, they noticed that thousands of sparrows gathered there. The author felt sorry for the sparrows, and author's mother brought bread and broke it into pieces and gave to the sparrows. But the sparrows did not notice at all. When the author's grandmother's dead body has taken for cremation, the birds flew away without quietly. That means they did not take the pieces of bread. The next day, the sweeper kept the pieces of the bread and put into the dustbin. Through this story, what we learn? What is the sweet companionship between the grandmother and the author? That means we should develop a good relationship with our grandparents. Listen what we learned. Now listen to the moral of the story. Love and emotion is experienced not only by human beings but animals and birds too. What is the moral of the story? Jishnu, can you say the moral of the story? Love and emotion is experienced not only by human beings but animals and birds too. Throughout the story, we can see the relationship, the intimate or sweet relationship between the grandmother and the author. At the same time, we can see the relationship between the grandmother and grandmothers and animals or birds. In the beginning, we can see the good relationship with grandmother and the stray dogs. Later, at the end of the story, we can see the relationship between the old lady and the sparrows. At the end of the story, we can see the sparrows came near her dead body to show their respect, show their love towards her. Namrata, can you summarize the story? The Portrait of a Lady, written by Khushwant Singh. Through this, the story gives us the intimate relationship between author and the grandmother. The first phase of the relationship started when he was left with her grandmother in the village. The second phase began when they went to the city. The third phase began when the author joined in a university and he got a separate room for her studies. Thus, the common relationship between them has broken. Later, author went to abroad for higher studies. Then after 5 years, he came back. Again, the lady was there at the railway station to receive him. But in the evening, there was a change noticed in her behavior. She invited the ladies from the neighborhood and sang a song to show her love towards her grandson. Next day, she was not well, and after some time, she lay on her bed and started praying. Later, they noticed that her stopped moving. That means she died. As it is a custom, they took her dead body and laid on the floor. When after some time they went to make arrangement for the funeral. Later they came back after some time. They noticed that the thousands of sparrows gathered there. This shows the relationship between the grandmother and the sparrows. Even in the midst of the story, we have seen even in the day of his arrival, her happiest moments were with the sparrows. That means there was an intimate relationship between the between grandmother and the sparrows. At last, when they have taken her dead body for cremation, the sparrows quietly flew away without taking the bread pieces which had given by the author's mother. This shows their intimate relationship. The next day, the sweeper kept the bread pieces and put it to the dustbin. That means you should also develop a good relationship with your grandparents. Okay, all of you understand? Then I will send you the notes through Google Classroom. All of you read the lesson. Thank you all.